So here's the thing about making a bet on yourself. The second you commit to it, the universe immediately starts testing you to see if you're really serious. Welcome back to the bet. Every journey starts with a choice, and mine is a bet. For 1 year, I'm gambling on energy over strategy. No more forcing and no pushing. Just the courage to show up and see what happens when reality becomes my playground. This isn't a podcast. It's a real-time experiment in the lab of my life. Welcome to the bet. Today, I want to share the framework that has allowed me to win every bet I've ever made on myself. And before you think I'm being cocky, let me be clear. I've made 5 major bets in my life, and all 5 worked. And they worked because of this specific framework I'm about to teach you. The first time I used it, I didn't really know what I was doing. My 19-month-old son had received a devastating diagnosis, multiple ones actually. The doctors were preparing us for the worst. I was in a very dark place. My mom asked me one question that changed everything. She said, "How is your fear going to help him or this situation?" So I made a 3-year bet with myself. I asked myself, what can I do each day for the next 3 years in exchange for a lifetime of mental peace with this situation? 3 years of commitment to a process in exchange for a lifetime of knowing that no matter what the outcome is, I could rest with the knowledge that I had committed to the process. I treated every day with the same urgency as if my house was on fire, because that is what it felt like. I focused on process only, working with mapping his beautiful little brain every single day. That's a powerful story for another day, and one I've never told publicly. But I will tell you this. Today, he's a Princeton graduate with the highest honors, and he is starting the 2nd year of his PhD. My second bet was during my divorce. Another dark time. I made a bet to rebuild my entire life and career from scratch while raising my son. And sometimes you just realize you have outgrown where you are, not because anything's wrong, but because you're meant for something different. I had no idea what my future was going to bring, but I focused on the process. Get the degrees. Build the foundation, discover what I was capable of on my own. The outcome took care of itself, including meeting my now husband, Mike, the summer before my last year of grad school, when I thought he'd just be my summer of fun guy. That's what happens when you trust your instincts about what's next, even when letting go of the familiar feels unsafe. The third time was the weight loss. I touched on that in the first episode. Here's the thing. For some reason, this one felt harder than the others. Maybe because I had struggled with weight my entire adult life. This felt absolutely impossible. Harder than navigating my son's diagnosis. Harder than rebuilding my life after divorce. Because this was the one thing I'd never been able to conquer. Let me tell you the real story of that third bet. Summer of 2019, Bora Bora. What was supposed to be a bucket list dream vacation. We'd saved up all our hotel miles, our air miles. We went all out for this once-in-a-lifetime trip. We're in this fancy, over-the-water bungalow with a private pool, killer view, nothing but horizon, vintage champagne for my birthday week. Everything was perfect on paper, but I was miserable. I remember sitting there, tears just streaming down my face. I was 48 years old, carrying about 50 extra pounds, and for the first time in my life, nothing I tried would work to lose the weight. My whole life, I'd have this cycle. Gain weight, lose weight, gain it back. But I'd always been able to drop it when I needed to. Not anymore. I turned to my husband and said, I cannot keep feeling like this. I cannot keep going like this. At that point, I was 194 pounds. I'm 5'8", and I looked up the healthy weight range. It was 136 to 164. I remember I was fixated on just getting to 164, the top of that range. That became my entire focus. So I went into what I call domination mode. I hired coaches, cut calories, tracked every macro, just absolute force and willpower. And you know what? I got to 164. But when I hit that number, instead of feeling magnificent, I felt exhausted. I was proud, for sure, but I was also full of doubt about how I was ever going to be able to sustain this. I knew I couldn't keep beating myself into submission day after day for the rest of my life. And that's when everything shifted. I realized I had two options: give up again, or find a way to make this feel easy. And I mean actually easy, not fake Instagram easy. And that's when I tapped into something that changed everything. So there's this psychological phenomenon called the Hawthorne Effect. Back in the 1920s, researchers at a factory near Chicago were trying to figure out if better lighting would make workers more productive. Here's what they found. It didn't matter how they adjusted the lighting. Productivity went up either way. You know why? Because the workers knew they were being watched by the researchers. Just being observed changed their behavior. So I thought, what if I could hack my own brain using this principle? What if I lived as if I had a camera crew following me around, documenting everything for a reality show? For 1 year, I committed to living in my imagination like I was being filmed. Every workout became a training montage. Every meal choice became a scene that either moved the plot forward or held it back. Every setback became character development with a face in the mirror story to the camera about what I was facing. But here's the crucial part. I did not commit to losing weight. I only committed to the process of living as if I was being filmed for 1 year. September 13th, that was the date I locked in my calendar. That was the date I would open the package, so to speak, and see what gift the year had brought me. And the result was crazy. I didn't just hit my ultimate dream body fantasy goal weight. I ended up blowing right past that and kept going. The weight I thought would be an absolute miracle to reach was actually more than what my process decided to deliver to me. In fact, the last 10 pounds that are supposedly the hardest, they flew off because I stopped fighting and started playing a completely different game. So let's take a minute and break down the actual framework, the 5 components that make these types of bets actually work. First, the container. You need a clear container for your bet. I love 1 year. It can't be someday. It can't be until I reach my goal. 1 year. Do you always need a year? Not necessarily. In my STAND program, for instance, we spend 6 weeks rewiring a single thought pattern. That's a really great initiation and a way to build momentum. But for true transformation, you need a year. A year captures all the seasons, the holidays, the summers, the new beginnings of spring, the introspection of winter, the inevitable challenges that are going to pop up along the way. You need to see how your new identity handles every season of life. And a year is short enough to feel achievable, but long enough that you can't fake it. You can white knuckle through anything for a month. You can force yourself for 3 months, but a year is going to require you to actually become different. It's going to require you to be different. Next, the observer effect. You need to create a mechanism for being watched. For me, it was the imaginary camera crew. For my memo bet, it was publicly committing to a full year of 104 episodes. And now with this podcast, the camera crew isn't imaginary anymore. It's you. The observer doesn't have to be real, but the observation does. Because when we feel seen, we show up differently. We're able to access reserves we didn't even know existed. The stories that feel like defeat become plot twists. Nobody likes a movie that has no conflict. That's not real. The dark moments are when we cheer the most for our heroes. Third, process over outcome. This is where most people fail before they even begin. My commitment wasn't to lose 50 pounds. It was to live as if I was being filmed. Every day, did I show up and do my process as if cameras were rolling? Yes or no? That's the only measure of success. With Memo, my commitment wasn't to build a successful private podcast. It was to record 2 episodes a week. Did I record them? Yes or no? With this current bet, my commitment isn't to build a multi-million-dollar business. It's to show up twice a week and document what happens when I trust energy over strategy. Process, not outcome. Fourth, the secret power. There is immense power in doing things in secret, especially at first. When you keep your bet quiet initially, you're not dissipating all that amazing energy of ignition by talking about it. Instead of letting that energy leak out into your conversations, you're keeping it close, like a precious seed. You're building pressure, creating momentum. I didn't tell anybody about my reality show concept for months. I didn't announce Memo until I had multiple episodes in the bank. And this podcast, nobody knew about it until now. Kept it totally under wraps. When things look like they're not working, and there will be times when nothing seems to be happening, that's when the secret power becomes your greatest asset. You're not performing for anyone else's timeline, and you're not giving yourself a false sense of achievement by telling people about something you've done that hasn't actually happened yet. And finally, our 5th component is evidence collection. Document everything, not for anyone else, but just for you, because your brain will lie. It will tell you nothing's changing, things aren't working, this isn't going to happen for you because X, Y, and Z, so you should quit. During my transformation, I tracked everything: weight, measurements, but also energy levels, confidence, how I showed up in meetings. The only thing I gave any weight to, pun intended, was my attitude and my adherence to the daily process. If I stuck to the process, I did not pay attention to what the scale said. The results eventually took care of themselves in a way I could have never predicted. This is the kind of evidence that will keep you going when your brain wants to quit. Now, here's something to understand about this podcast. I'm structuring it like this for a reason. The Tuesday episodes are going to follow a different framework, the IUA framework, or interrupt, upgrade, activate. Every Tuesday, I'll be interrupting some default pattern that's been running in my mental programming about building a business. The idea is to catch that old survival script in action. Then I will upgrade it, install a new code, rewire the pattern, and finally, I will activate it, which basically means take some kind of action to integrate it into my daily process. That is what cognitive engineering looks like in action. And you'll watch it happen each week in real time as I navigate this year-long experiment. Then on Friday, we will have a mini memo drop. These are going to be short. Think of them as your quick brain software updates. 5 to 10 minutes to interrupt a specific pattern and give you something you can use immediately. So let me ask you this. What would change if you gave yourself 1 year? Not necessarily to achieve some outcome, but to commit to a process. To live as if you're being watched by the future version of yourself who already has everything you want. What if you decided to play a completely different game? Here's what I know for sure. 1 year from now, your future self is either going to be kissing your ass for starting today, or they're going to be actively creating regret, chaos, and some kind of pressure in your life as a way to get you to finally take action. The camera is already rolling. The only question is, are you going to show up for your scene? Next episode, I'm going to share what's already happening with this experiment. The tests, the resistance, the second guessing myself, the plot twists, and I'll show you exactly how I'm using the interrupt, upgrade, activate framework. That doesn't really roll off the tongue, does it? To navigate it all. Until then, remember, nothing about you is broken. There's nothing to fix. You just need to upgrade your operating system. Go bet on yourself.